Hello, I'm Mike Parker, the Tree Fruit Extension Specialist at North Carolina State University. Today we're in a high-density Aztec Fuji planting at the Mountain Horticultural Crops Research Station in Mills River, North Carolina. Many growers, when establishing new orchards in these days, are planting higher density with a higher number of trees per acre. The reason for these high-density orchards is that the trees that we are using are very precocious. They bear fruit much earlier. Having fruit much earlier results in greater profitability for the grower. Also, they can realize the extra revenue from having newer varieties. When those new varieties come into production, the high value early in the life of that apple realizes great profits for the growers. Also, these high-density systems allow most of the work to be done from the ground instead of having workers that have to climb up and down ladders for thinning, for pruning, and for harvesting. With high-density systems, it also allows the opportunity for mechanization, reducing the amount of labor capital that is required. However, for these high-density orchards to be successful and profitable, they must be managed very well. High-density orchards in North Carolina are probably going to be in the density of approximately 500 to 600 trees per acre. Trees within the row will be spaced approximately 4 to 6 foot apart, with the rows spaced 12 to 15 apart, depending on the elevation and the terrain of the land. As I mentioned earlier, in order for the high-density systems to be productive and profitable, they must be managed very well with several very specific considerations. The first is a dwarfing rootstock must be used. This tree that we're standing next to is an M9337. It is a dwarfing rootstock. Also, if you look at the base of the tree, the rootstock has been planted approximately 6 inches above the soil line. The greater the amount of the rootstock shank out of the ground, the greater the dwarfing on the tree will be. Most high-density systems today require at least 4 to 6 inches of the rootstock shank to be planted out of the ground. Another very important criteria is a support system. Here we are using angle iron. It's a 10-foot angle iron. 2 foot is driven in the ground, and that is to support the trees early in their life. The stake is there to support the tree and the fruit load within the 2nd or 3rd year. Here we are using metal stakes for research purposes. However, any type of system which should be suitable, many times a wire system, whether it be a wire at 10 foot with bamboo stakes or a multiple wire system, 4 or 5 wire system is used. It's what is most economical for the grower and for their management system. Another key criteria with high-density systems is an irrigation system. The irrigation system that we're using here are micro sprinklers. They apply approximately 15 gallons of water per hour in a 6 to 8 foot radius, usually to the drip line of the tree within our herbicide strip. You'll also notice that we do have a vegetation-free strip underneath the tree so that we do not have grass that is competing with the tree for water and nutrients. With high-density system, there also has to be an associated training system. Several of the primary ones now is a tall spindle, or what we are growing here is a modified slender spindle. Our trees here are spaced 6 by 14 for approximately 500 trees per acre. We have a support system to 8 foot with a tree height of approximately 10 foot. Characteristics of this tree, it does have a strong central leader, one main trunk all the way up. Then we have lateral growth coming off from this, and all this lateral growth is at horizontal or below. The difference between the tall spindle and a modified slender spindle as we would have here is that we would keep one major basically whorl of permanent scaffold to the base of the tree, with the rest of the growth on the tree being renewed. The tall spindle tree will have growth renewed consistently along the entire leader. To renew that growth, we would come in and use a Dutch cut. When the diameter of the lateral branch gets anywhere from 1/2 to 2/3 the diameter of the leader, it is cut off during the winter with a Dutch cut. This is a typical Dutch cut, cut at an angle to decrease the surface on top, allowing a greater surface on the bottom to get branches to grow from underneath the bottom there, coming out at a wide crotch angle. We allow them to regrow 10 inches along, and then they're weighted down. Another way to train branches down to the stake or a wire trellis system is with thin gauge wire. We come in and put it through the stake, come in and then wrap it loosely around the branch. Until that point, we will allow these lateral branches to come out and crop. They are pulled down to encourage fruiting. And then we will prune these branches back to lateral growth during the dormant season. The ultimate height of trees in high-density systems is no more than double the free alley or free row width. If we have 14-foot rows, we have 6 foot taken up, 3 foot from each side. We have 8-foot middles, so the height of this tree should be no more than 16 foot. However, in our situation, we would allow these trees go to 10 to 12 foot for labor purposes. Some of the major mistakes that we see growers making with these high-density systems, the first one we see is planting the rootstock too deep, allowing that rootstock union to be below the soil line after the soil is settled, which results in the scion rooting, the top rooting, and resulting in a full-size tree. The other thing that we see is inadequate support systems that cannot support the weight of the tree and the fruit, especially if we get heavy winds, tropical storm winds, or we get early ice and snowstorms and the entire system collapses. And the last thing many times we have problems with is allowing the lateral branches to become too large and not renewing them quick enough. This is a prime example here that we notice that this lateral branch is larger than the central leader. That branch should have been cut out at least 1, maybe 2 years ago with a renewed Dutch cut. This is a high-density orchard at Apple Hill Orchards in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Stephen Godfrey is the orchard manager here. This is early Fuji and M9 going into the third leaf. Trees were planted as whips. This year they're looking somewhere around 300 bushel per acre on a 4x14 tree spacing for 777 trees per acre. This is a new orchard established at Apple Hill Orchard in Hendersonville again. They're planted G11 with early Fuji on top. This is the first year planting. It will have a 4-wire trellis. The posts have been put in. The wires will go in this winter. You'll notice all of the lateral branches have been pulled down. Here they're using rubber bands pulled down below horizontal. This will be a 4-foot spacing, so they have the lower permanent whorl of scaffolds with the remainder of the tree is going to be renewed as the tree matures. We're in the orchard of Wayne Pace in Dana, North Carolina. Wayne has approximately 25 acres of high-density tall spindle trees. He's using rootstocks of B9, M9, and some 26 and some of the weaker varieties. The tree spacing ranges from 4 to 6 foot within the row and 14 foot between rows, averaging 518 to 777 trees per acre, using approximately 10 or 12 varieties, the newer varieties that are in high demand at local retail outlets. One of the main issues that Wayne has when he gets close to harvest is with damage from the birds. The birds come in, they peck all the apples and cause a significant amount of damage. So we've been hearing going on in the background, you hear the propane cannons that he uses across the 25 acres. He also has the bird scare or bird guard alarms that basically broadcast a distress signal for birds of concern in his orchard. And you can hear that out here. Again, has been very effective at minimizing the bird damage in his orchard. However, there are issues with neighbors, but again, like the deer, the neighbors become used to it over time as well. In addition to the bird alarms that are used to deter bird damage in this orchard, wind machines are also used. Wind machines are used to protect the crop during the spring for frost and freeze damage. In North Carolina, frost and freeze damage is a major issue during bloom. The difference between a full crop and no crop many times is only 3 to 5 degrees. The wind machines are one way that we can minimize the potential for frost and freeze in the orchards, especially with the high establishment cost for our high density orchards. Okay, we're at the orchard of C.L. Henderson in Hendersonville, North Carolina. This is a high density system. Trees are spaced 5 by 14. All of the trees are on bud 9. The scion variety is going to be Pink Lady and Fuji. As we had talked about earlier, having a substantial support system is essential. At this orchard here, they are using 12-foot poles within the row with 2 foot driven in the ground. They have 5-wire, high tensile wire, spaced 2 foot apart. Then the trees are tied to it. Again, the system is not here for moral support, it's here for physical support, and they tie the trees at every wire. And then they also, from the tree up, they use string in which the leader is wrapped around that until it reaches the next wire. You'll notice with the training system that clothespins are used in the trees. As growth emerges in the spring, upright growth, the clothespins are used to placed around the trunk of the tree to get that wide crotch angle. Then as the branches become longer, they come in and use wires. Basically, a low gauge wire is used to come in and pull those branches below horizontal. They wrap one end of the wire around this wire here, then they loosely wrap them over the branches here. They can move them and place them throughout the season to make sure the entire branch stays below horizontal during the growing season.
Hopefully this video has given you an understanding of some of the higher density apple systems used in North Carolina and how they can successfully be used in your orchard.